So there's no real definitive rules on investigating. I always go by the open source rule. If it's an open source, if it's something that I could go through a couple mouse strokes and find what I'm looking for without hacking or breaking or using illegal methods to obtain, I consider that researchable information. This is not what you think of when you go and start Googling someone's name and all of a sudden Intellius, Zaba Search, My Life results start coming up. They're pretending to be like the professional sources we have access to, TLO, LexisNexis, Clear, those other services that make themselves like, for $40, I'll give you everything on Joe Girard.
Right.
No, don't do that. That's not a professional source. It's not something we recommend. However, you might not have access to them because those all require licensed investigators or law enforcement or equivalent credentials.
Okay.
You might not have permissible purpose to be looking up Joe Girard because he's just your neighbor. He's not someone in an active investigation. Or you might not be able to afford it. I mean, there's all a number of reasons why people have access to these databases. So I recommend we come and use these services right here, because this will get you to the same information. It just takes you longer to do it.
Yeah, okay.
In fact, when I'm going back over to our little slide deck, while you're doing that, even if you have, and I subscribe to all of them, we've got Tracers Info, TLO, Clear, and IRB through LexisNexis here in my office, just to name a few. We run those comprehensive reports you buy from those services, and then I go to BRB Publications to see what they missed. Because I got to tell you, folks, I do benchmark analysis on all those databases and compare them to each other every year, and I write it up for the Data to Know newsletter. They're all excellent services, and they all miss something vital. You might run internal investigations for your company, and all of a sudden someone comes to you and says, and you work for Company A, and someone in the Department of Human Resources comes to you and says, I was cruising the internet last night and I found a IHateCompanyA.com website with all this terrible information on there, or whistleblower Company A. Which either case, whether it's the whistleblower or the person who hates you, you're going to need to figure out who that is to find out if that's an internal employee and an internal issue. On the flip side, if you're dealing in products, you know, perhaps you make you work for Swarovski Crystal, and all of a sudden you find out there's counterfeit Swarovski crystals out there being sold on SwarovskiCrystalsForSale.com. That's going to be your job to find out who it is. So all these reasons why you want to find out who's behind the website. What's in front of you right now is the tool to do it with. It's another free resource. Domain tools, although there's a lot of advertising in here, but you know, we kind of deal with that with the freeness. Right in the middle of domain tools, there's that Occupy Wall Street. Right in the search box right there, it says search for domain. You'd put whatever website you're interested in finding out. You click through, and they give you this screen that says, hey, this is all the information behind the person who registered the domain name. Email addresses, phone numbers. The phone number is in New York and Manhattan area, but the fax number, ironically, is out in Seattle, Washington. Sean Beach, Florida, Hotmail. I mean, this is all the contact information I was trying to get, and I 3-4 mouse clicks, and I walked right into it. Google is the #1 resource out there for finding stuff on the internet. Absolutely, hands down. It is the market share leader. I sing praises. I've been to Google. I've done training there. They told me how their stuff works. But Google's only capturing 1% of what's on the internet. A single percentage of everything available on the internet is in Google's archive. And as vast and as resourceful as this tool is, you are missing a huge amount. Google's greatest weakness is searching blogs and social media. We talked about public records. Those were those databases. Basically, it's information captured about you and your life and stored in the city clerk's office. You know, your birth, your date, your diplomas, your marriages, your divorces. This is different. This is your public information, which used to be personal information. Your preferences, what you like to eat, what your favorite movie is, what book you're reading. how tall you are. Are you on a diet? Did you drink coffee? Are you trying to quit coffee? Yeah, welcome to the world of social networks. It's a professional social network. You get to outline who you are in the professional world. And I get to see, here are all my jobs. You can learn all about me here. On the flip side, though, I can look for you. I could find out who you are, where you've been working, what you've been up to. In fact, I'm literally just going to look for a Robert Smith. I'm just going to pull a name out there. So if I happen to be looking for Robert Smith, let's pull this guy up. And I'm investigating him. I'm now pulling, okay, look, he looks for the law enforcement at the DEA, all of his history, everything that he's put up there about himself. So obviously there's going to be a little bit of bias going on here. I mean, you read my LinkedIn profile, I'm a genius. But it's because this is our own resumes online. What you really get as an investigator out of this is who are they connected to, what associations do they belong to, who has recommended him, where have they gone to college. I mean, this guy's in the DEA, but he was an accountant with DoubleTree Hotel for a year, a million years ago. I mean, so did I know he's an accountant? No. Now I read he's an accountant. He's also fluent in Spanish and holds a TS security clearance, which he probably shouldn't put there on his LinkedIn profile. But anyway, I'll connect to him later and tell him. The next batch of questions, because again, the first 3 bullets are covered here. Where did you go to school? Where do you work? Where have you worked? And who do you connect it to? Now we get into personal affiliations, your hobbies, your sports teams, your opinions. How many of you are excited about the football game yesterday? How many of you are crushed over it? How many of you could care less? You're going to tell me on Facebook. You're going to share with me your height, your weight, and your gender on MySpace. I'm tall and slender. I'm athletic build. When you're traveling, again, if you drink coffee, all these other bullet points are things that you're now sharing in Facebook, MySpace, Twitter, Pinterest, all these different social networks that are out there. Something I want to mention, too, that also applies to LinkedIn. It applies to Facebook. It applies to all social network searching. You can look for a person by their name, their nickname, their email address, and their cell phone number. These are 4 key pieces that most people tend to put into all their profiles. I'm given this huge list of Robert Martins, and it's too much to look through. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to click over to the people link. That'll filter this down to just Robert Martins who are people. Once that happens, search tools are offered up. I can look for Robert Martin specifically to location, education, or workplace. So I'll say location, and I'll try a New York, New York. And these are all my Robert Martins in New York, New York. And granted, it's a very big name, popular name. I can add other filters and narrow this down. But, I could go through the whole list and see if I could find him. And let's just kind of grab somebody here. Let's look at this fellow. He's Robert Martin. He studied at the University of Georgia. He's from Savannah, a nice little city there. He's got 691 friends. Maybe it's the Star Vodka he's a big interest in. He became very sociable with it. So all these things. Now, we see all these little bits and pieces on him. The most valuable thing, even though I think he's a little loose in his friending, is that you get his friends list. This is the most valuable thing you can get in an investigation online. Is who do they associate to? Who are they friends with? I can look for all the other Martins that he's connected to. These are probably relatives of some form or another, especially Vincent Martin, who's also in Savannah, Georgia, and Mary Jane. These are all going to be different relatives, cousins, brothers, parents, children. So we start building up this nice list.
You can use this, but you can't necessarily take the information you're gathering through your fake account into a courtroom, but it can certainly inform your investigation path.
Well, yeah, what we call this is intelligence gathering.
Okay.
We absolutely call this intelligence gathering. I'm just kind of going on to our piece here. We're talking about what a private investigator or law enforcement officer is going to use to gather bits and leads. When I say this is intelligence, it's not evidence. I don't necessarily want that person to walk into the courtroom and say, look what I found. I want them to use it as a lead, and then I want them to get solid evidence to back it up.